realistically, this game, and I point to this, but it meant a lot. Like, it really did. It did a lot of really cool things with the fighter genre. It brought back wave dashing. In the original version of it, the dash mechanics of this game are fantastic. Think about just all the fun little like movement text that you could do. Like, what was the one? It was, you don't do it as much nowadays, but the jump dash, right? Like, that was really sick. That was a really fun feature. You had like the multiple specials, like an in-air special versus just a standard special. Like, that was so innovative for the time. Having some of the charge up attacks be a little different. All of the cooldowns that were associated with each character, like, that was such a fun feature, and like it worked really well for like balancing and whatnot. I don't know. This game, it had something really special to it. It had a lot of heart. Obviously, the character roster was fantastic, right? And, just looking back and thinking, like, how did this game fail? I don't know the answer, to be perfectly honest with you. But at the same time, I know for a fact I lost interest in it a while ago. I know a lot of people lost interest in it a while ago. And it's interesting to think about, right? It's interesting to think how a game with all of the right answers fell so miserably. Because, like, there are reasons why it failed, right? The massive character models, just made a lot less complex movement and whatnot. I think Powerpuff Girls maybe just proved that, to be honest with you. But also, they're kind of OP because their hitbox is so small, right? In a way, But so you have that feature. You have the slower speed of the game in general is something you can point to. The lack of ability to do this to stop people from being stale. When the game first came out was honestly kind of a deal, right? Because like with this, you don't lose to spammers anymore. You just don't, right? It's the PvE modes being hyper focused on, the lack of ability to get characters early on, which it seems like the Hero Road was a way to unlock characters for people in a free to play manner, which is really cool. Again, I'm glad that they added those elements, but like too little, too late. All these things were added in a clamor for attention because they realized, oh shoot, we're doing poor business practices. Nobody's interested in, playing a game where it's impossible to get all the same characters. I was fortunate enough to play the beta and buy the Founders Pack, so I was able to not worry about that. But there's many people who came into this game as their first like real try of Multiversus, hearing how great it would have been and how awesome the beta was from their friends or whatever. And then they go into it and they're like, they have like 6 characters unlocked, and every other one costs toast and to get, and it's like, well, what is really the point? Why would I play this game when it costs me a fortune to unlock all the characters? And there's other free-to-play games out there in the market, right? When you decide to say, I'm gonna make daily missions, I'm gonna give my game daily missions, you are saying to your audience, this is your only free-to-play game. You have no other free-to-play game that you are going to play but this game, right? Because realistically, if you are a gamer in 2025, there are so many free-to-play games out there. You probably have one that you go to over and over again, right? You have your daily missions, you have all that stuff. You don't have two. You very rarely have two, unless you have ample time to play multiple at once. So when you show this, and when this is your mission to say this is going to be your free-to-play game, it's a bold statement, it's a risky statement, and odds are you're going to lose a lot of people's attention because there are other free-to-play games out in the market that provide more content at a given time. I think Fortnite is a huge example. Granted, I don't care for Fortnite, I don't play Fortnite, but the amount of content that game is able to generate compared to a game like Multiversus, night and day, right? It's night and day. So why would I drop Fortnite if I'm already into Fortnite? Which is, granted, a lot of people are into Fortnite, but when this game came out, Fortnite was a huge thing. Still is a huge thing. Probably less huge, but still huge. But why would I leave Fortnite, that my free-to-play game, for a game that offers significantly less content and one mode that everyone cares about, and a bunch of modes that nobody cares about at all, like rifts and rifts, right? So I think just looking at it from that lens, if this game had gone the path of I'm not going to be free to play, then I think it would have succeeded. I think just nowadays, if you're choosing to go free to play, you're competing against Fortnite and Roblox and the massive giant free to play games that have already laid the groundwork for what it means to be a free to play service model. And I think that is really where this game failed. I mentioned Brawlhalla a little bit while I was playing. I think Aquaman I mentioned. And the reason why Brawlhalla is seeing success, or enough success to keep the bottom line, and this game failed, is because Brawlhalla made its claim before Fortnite and the big players in free-to-play existed. That really is it. The people that played Brawlhalla when it came out, the game was good enough, technical enough, it had a strong enough fighting game niche to survive. This game came out when free-to-play was already such a huge thing in the market. And unless if you are groundbreaking, or unless if there's another free-to-play game that you're directly competing with, like an Overwatch, for example, with Marvel Rivals, that's struggling too, then you're just not going to find success. And even in that case with Marvel Rivals, it's such a oddball example because there were so many other Overwatch clones going out at the same time, like Concord, like Paladins, both of which are closing now, or shutting down rather. So it's just the model of free to play is so short term that to sell it as a service based game, it's kind of like a lie in a lot of ways, But you can't say it's a lie because then nobody's gonna buy your skins and everyone's gonna quit the game earlier than they should. So I think that is the real core of why this game failed. I don't think it's the only reason why this game failed, but I think it is at the core of why it failed. And if it had gone a non-free to play route with all the buzz and hype around it, I think it would have found more success. Maybe. Maybe. Like, that's a maybe. So, I don't know. That's my thoughts. I think this game's great. I love it overall. I think there are definitely issues with it being free to play. There are issues with how they changed it from the beta. Of course. But it seems like they've gone in a better direction. Like, this fighter road thing was really cool. Being able to unlock characters just through XP versus actually, having to pay the money. And that was the only way. If you grinded it enough, you would actually get the characters for free, which just makes sense. So a lot of free-to-play games do nowadays, like Valorant, for example. Like, even to an extent, League of Legends. Although much less so. And yeah, I think they picked the right things to fix. Fighter Road was a great example of that. And it's just a little upsetting that this came too little too late. The Shield, another great example of that. But yeah, it just came too little too late. And again, this game is very special to me. It's the thing that started this whole channel, this whole journey. It really inspired me to be like, I'm gonna make videos on Garnet and Marceline, or not Marceline, and Finn, and all these characters. And for it to just end is sad, but also it's like things end, right? Games are gonna end. Every game's gonna end at some point, right? Or at least find an end of life where now it's like just local only, right? But nobody's gonna play that. I'm not gonna play that, to be honest with you. I'd rather just play Smash Bros. And that was the big competitor that they went against. And there was some disdain for Smash Bros. But it didn't deliver an experience that felt rich enough. And also the fact that it was free to play when the current market was spend $60. If you already have Smash Bros., why would you jump on a free to play clone? I think that's another thing. That was an important factor. Not clone. It's not a clone. It's its own thing. I will detract that. But a game in the same genre. You're not going to play a game in the same genre if you already own the game that is considered the superior one, both in terms of actually being a superior game, but also in terms of it being perceived as a more superior game because it has a barrier to entry, right? With every free-to-play game comes this perception of it being lower quality. And I think that's true to an extent. But I think more and more these days, There are many games that are free to play that could have come out as not free to play. And I think it's up to the developer, and more so up to the business minded folks at the development studio, to make the right call on if it should go free to play or if it should be pay. There's a lot of hype behind a game going into it. You know people are going to buy the game. You can still monetize it with cosmetics. Nobody's against that idea. We can also package it with cosmetics to begin with, right? Call of Duty has followed this model for a long time. They have a $70 game that comes out every year, and they still charge you arm and a leg for cosmetics because nobody has an issue with that business practice anymore. Nobody does, for better or worse, right? Probably for worse. So you can still monetize a game that costs money to enter, and it makes that game perceived to be higher quality, and also brings the right people in. You're not going to have random Joe Schmoes trying it out, hating it, giving it a bad review, and moving on. Because that kills a game. It kills a game. You want the right people in your game to build the right community, to build word of mouth, to make that game really shine. That was the Overwatch 1 formula. And it worked beautifully. Beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. And here, it did not. And with Overwatch 2, it did not. And with all of these free-to-play games, it did not work beautifully, despite all the effort and care and time that went into this game. And to make it that polished product, at the end of the day, the business model was what ultimately failed it. And not for the ways you think, is my main point. I think a lot of people will see the price tag of Battle Pass, or even just see the word Battle Pass, and freak out. That's not the issue. The issue was, on release, it was not a consumer-friendly product. The offerings that they added were not consumer-friendly. The game was made worse. But was the game actually worse? Or was it the people in the game that wanted to give it a try? Were they not the right people to get in the game in the first place? You know? Does that barrier of entry, that $20 fee to play the game, does that eliminate a lot of the fighting game spammers, or, you know, the not best of 3ers, or whatever, right? Maybe. Does that $20 entry fee build a community that fights to get spots at fighting game conventions, that puts the right mindset into the people in the game, or the people developing the game, to say, let's support this community versus let's try to grab as many people as possible and hope they stick? Because at the end of the day, that's what the free-to-play model is. It's acquisition of as many people as you can into a game. And it's never enough in retainment, in my opinion. I think there are some games that do retainment well of their player base. This was not one of them that did that well. It was one that wanted to build whales, and to do that, they had a sort of shotgun approach to start, and then pivoted to, let's retain who we have. But by the time they tried to retain people, it was too late. Just based on my initial thought on this. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm a genius when it comes to video game business models and all this jazz, right? Not at all. But just from an outsider's perspective, and also playing both the beta and this game, I can kind of come to those thoughts, and I'm like, I don't know. There's something odd about how this was packaged. There was an air of greed to it that was very seen, and it made sense because the game was free. But in the same vein, it's like, why don't, with all the hype of this game, give it a $20 price tag. People are still going to enter it, but the right people are going to enter it. People are going to fight for your game. They're going to form a community around it. Sort of like entering that special club, if you will. I think that's what it means to buy a game versus download a game for free on the library. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too passionate. I like the free-to-play model, in summary, but there's a reason why games cost money. And that reason is to get the right people in your game. If Splatoon went free to play, Something that I think will happen with Splatoon 4. I do believe it still. We had a podcast about the entire thing, if you're curious. I think we had a podcast about the entire thing. Either that or we talked about it and we never recorded it. But if that game was free to play, it's gonna kill that game. Because it's gonna bring in so many people that you don't want in the game. And it's gonna bring the publicity of the game tremendously down. And the people who play it are gonna feel ashamed and they're gonna stop playing it. That did not happen with me in Multiversus. It happened to me a smidge with Overwatch 2. Oh, that was not the only reason I stopped playing that game. And it would happen to a lot of free-to-play games that have an existing audience that are going to expand it in a way that is not natural. If that makes sense. So that's my official take on this game and why it failed. If you're curious on why I feel this way further, leave some comments. Leave some feedback. Otherwise, enjoy. Either this will be a separate video or it'll be a part of my win with every character, marathon, if you will. I might sprinkle it in. I might make this separate. I might do both. Who knows? I'll probably make it separate, honestly. But yeah, thank you for watching. Enjoyed the other Multiversus content on the channel. So it's gonna be the last Multiversus video I make. It's gonna be this win-a-thon. So I appreciate the Multiversus game, what it's done, all the developers that worked on this game that made it as special as they could, despite the poor business model and how it just simply led to the downfall of this game, in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm very adamant about the cost of making your game free to play and bringing in that many people is that you're going to isolate people who don't really play fighting games, and that's just it. That's just it. You know what I mean? And then they're going to provide negative feedback. And then that loop, that power of word of mouth is good, both positive and negative. Right? And I think people look at the positive and are like, oh, yay. But there's negative, too. And if you're bringing the wrong people in, if they're saying the wrong thing about your game, other people are not going to try it. And also people that are with those friends are going to stop playing that game. So it's not everyone's meant to play every game. That's my take. Regardless, thank you. I'll stop rambling now. But thank you for watching. And yeah, I'll catch you later.